Hey viewer, before we begin, I just want to ask for a small favor. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling me if you enjoyed the story. For you, it's only 10 seconds. But for me, it's huge motivation to keep creating more emotional stories like this. And now, let's begin. The question came out of nowhere. Dad, why does Mom sleep in Uncle Jake's room sometimes? I nearly dropped my coffee mug. My 8-year-old son Tyler stood in the kitchen doorway rubbing sleep from his eyes while Saturday morning cartoons played softly in the living room behind him. Outside, rain tapped against the windows of our small house outside Columbus, Ohio. For a second, I honestly thought I heard him wrong. What did you say? Tyler shrugged like he was asking something completely normal. Mom slept downstairs again last night. My stomach tightened instantly. Jake was my younger brother, 34, recently divorced. Funny as hell. The kind of guy who could walk into a room and make everybody feel comfortable within 5 minutes. After his divorce in Chicago, he moved into our basement temporarily until he got back on his feet. That had been 8 months ago. At first, it felt good having him around. He helped fix things around the house, played basketball with Tyler, cooked dinner when I worked late shifts driving delivery trucks. My wife Rachel loved having him there too. Too much, apparently. I forced a smile at my son. Buddy, Mom probably just fell asleep watching TV downstairs. Tyler nodded slowly. Okay. Then he walked back toward the living room. But I couldn't move. Because deep down, I already knew he wasn't wrong. The signs had been piling up for months. Quiet conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Rachel suddenly caring how she looked around the house again. Jake buying expensive cologne despite barely having a job. And the late nights. Always the late nights. I worked long hours. Sometimes 14-hour days. By the time I got home, Rachel usually claimed she was exhausted and went to bed early. But more than once, I woke up at 2 or 3 in the morning and realized she wasn't beside me. Every time she had an explanation. Couldn't sleep. Watching Netflix. Talking to Jake about his divorce. I wanted to believe her so badly that I ignored what was right in front of me. Until my son accidentally ripped the blindfold off. That afternoon, I found Rachel folding laundry in our bedroom. I tried acting normal. Failed immediately. Tyler said something weird this morning. Her hand stopped moving for half a second. That tiny pause told me everything. What do you mean? He asked why you sleep in Jake's room sometimes. Rachel laughed too quickly. Oh my God. Seriously? I stared at her. Well, he probably saw me downstairs one night and got confused. In Jake's room, he has the bigger TV downstairs. The excuses came too fast. Too polished. I felt heat rising into my chest. Rachel. She crossed her arms instantly. Defensive already. What? Are you sleeping with my brother? The silence that followed felt endless. Then she looked away, and my entire world cracked open without her saying a single word. No, she whispered finally. But she couldn't look me in the eyes when she said it. That's when fear turned into certainty. I sat down slowly on the edge of the bed, suddenly unable to feel my hands. How long? Rachel's face filled with panic. Nothing happened. That's not what I asked. Tears immediately formed in her eyes. Please don't do this. I laughed bitterly under my breath. Don't do this. Like I was the one destroying our family. Tell me the truth. Rachel wiped her face hard. And then came the sentence I'll never forget for the rest of my life. It wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't scream. That's the strange part one remember most. No dramatic explosion. No punching walls. No throwing lamps across the bedroom like in some movie. I just sat there staring at Rachel while my heartbeat pounded so hard it made my ears ring. It wasn't supposed to happen, she repeated quietly. I looked at her like she was somebody I'd never met before. You slept with him. Tears rolled down her cheeks instantly. It only happened once. I laughed sharply. Nobody on earth believes once. How long? Rachel shook her head hard. Please. How long have you been sneaking around with my brother? She covered her face with both hands. 3 months. The room suddenly felt too small to breathe in. 3 months. 3 months of dinners together. Family movie nights. Watching Tyler play baseball while they stood beside each other pretending to be normal. 3 months of me shaking Jake's hand every morning before work. I stood up so fast the bed frame creaked. Get out. Rachel looked stunned. What? Get out. My voice echoed through the house loud enough that Tyler muted the television in the living room. Rachel immediately lowered her voice. Please don't yell. I stared at her in disbelief. You worried about yelling right now? Tyler's awake. I pointed toward the basement door. My brother's downstairs, Rachel. Her face crumbled completely. You think I don't know how horrible this is? I laughed again, but this time it sounded almost broken. No, I said quietly. I don't think you do. At that exact moment, footsteps creaked from the basement stairs. Jake appeared wearing gray sweatpants and an old Ohio State hoodie like this was any normal Saturday morning. Then he saw my face and instantly knew. Damn, he muttered softly. I walked toward him before I even realized I was moving. Rachel grabbed my arm immediately. Don't. Jake raised both hands slowly. Ethan. I shoved him hard against the wall. So it's true. He looked away for half a second. That half second was all the answer I needed. Something snapped inside me. I swung hard. My fist caught him directly across the jaw, sending him crashing into the hallway table. Family pictures hit the floor and shattered everywhere. Rachel screamed. Tyler started crying in the living room. The sound froze all three of us instantly. That was the worst part. Not the affair. Not the betrayal. My son hearing his family fall apart in real time. I stepped back, breathing heavily, while Jake slowly wiped blood from his mouth. You deserve that, he muttered. You're damn right I did. Rachel rushed toward the living room to comfort Tyler while Jake leaned against the wall, rubbing his jaw. For several seconds, we just stared at each other. Brothers. Best friends once. Now strangers standing in the ruins of a family. I didn't plan this, Jake said finally. I almost hit him again for saying something so stupid. You think that matters? No. Then why? Jake looked exhausted suddenly. Older somehow. She was lonely. Those three words cut deeper than the affair itself. Because part of me already knew they were true. I drove trucks 6 days a week. Some nights I barely spoke 10 words before collapsing into bed. Rachel had been trying to talk to me for years while I kept telling myself I was sacrificing for the family. Meanwhile, Jake was home, listening to her, laughing with her, being present in ways I stopped being a long time ago. But none of that excused this. You're my brother, I whispered. Jake swallowed hard. I know. No, you don't. The basement suddenly felt poisonous. Every memory inside the house felt poisoned. Family barbecues, Christmas mornings, poker nights, all fake now. Tyler peeked nervously from the living room doorway, eyes red from crying. Dad, the second I saw fear on my son's face, my anger twisted into something worse. Shame. I knelt down immediately. Hey, buddy, why are you fighting? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Because how do you explain betrayal to an 8-year-old boy without destroying his entire idea of family? Behind him, Rachel was crying silently. Jake couldn't even look at Tyler. Finally, my son asked the question that shattered what little strength I had left. Is Uncle Jake leaving? And nobody answered him. Jake didn't leave that day. Not immediately. That somehow made everything worse. Rachel begged me not to blow up the family before we figured things out. Jake stayed hidden in the basement most of the weekend while tension poisoned every inch of the house. Tyler kept asking questions. Why is Mom crying? Why won't Uncle Jake come upstairs? Why are you sleeping on the couch, Dad? Every answer felt like a lie. By Sunday evening, I felt like I was suffocating inside my own home. Then my mother called. Don't forget dinner tonight, she said cheerfully. Your father already bought steaks. I almost laughed. Family dinner. Perfect timing. I should have canceled. Instead, some sick part of me wanted to see if Jake could sit at the same table pretending to be my brother after destroying my marriage. So we went. The drive to my parents' house felt painfully quiet. Rachel stared out the passenger window while Tyler played on his Nintendo Switch in the back seat, completely unaware that his world was hanging by a thread. Jake followed behind us in his truck. When we arrived, my mother hugged Rachel first. That nearly broke me, because Mom had no idea the woman she kissed on the cheek had been sleeping with both her sons. The smell of grilled steak filled the backyard while football played on the patio television. My dad flipped burgers with a beer in his hand, like every normal Sunday growing up. Everything looked normal. That was the terrifying part. Disaster can sit right in the middle of a family barbecue, smiling politely. Jake arrived 5 minutes later. The second he walked through the gate, my father grinned. There he is. Finally decided to join civilization again. Jake forced a smile. Rachel wouldn't even look at him. I noticed everything now. Every glance avoided too carefully. Every nervous movement. Every fake smile. Tyler ran toward Jake immediately. Uncle Jake, you promised to help me build my Lego truck. Jake knelt down instantly, guilt written all over his face. Yeah, buddy. I remember. Watching my son hug him almost made me physically sick. Dinner started tense and only got worse. Halfway through the meal, my mother noticed Rachel barely eating. You okay, sweetheart? Rachel nodded quickly. Just tired. Dad laughed. That's marriage after 10 years. Everybody chuckled except me. I took a long drink of beer instead. Then Mom turned toward me. You're awfully quiet tonight. Before I could answer, Jake spoke. Ethan's stressed from work. I looked directly at him. Don't talk for me. The table went silent instantly. My father frowned. Everything all right? Rachel looked panicked. Jake stared down at his plate. And suddenly I realized something horrifying. I could destroy everybody's lives right there with one sentence. One sentence and Sunday dinner would become the moment our entire family shattered forever. Part of me wanted to do it. I wanted my parents to feel the same betrayal burning inside my chest. Instead, I stood up slowly. I need air. I walked through the backyard toward the old swing near the fence where I used to sit as a kid. The October air felt cold against my skin. A minute later, footsteps approached behind me. Rachel, please don't tell them, she whispered. I laughed bitterly without looking at her. You worried about protecting Jake? I'm worried about destroying your parents. I turned toward her finally. You should have thought about that before sleeping with him. Rachel's eyes filled again. I hate myself for this. Good. The word slipped out harsher than I intended. She flinched. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then Rachel quietly said something that completely blindsided me. I think I'm pregnant. The world stopped. Literally stopped. I stared at her, unable to breathe. What? Tears streamed down her face now. I found out Friday. A ringing sound filled my ears. No. Rachel nodded weakly. I haven't told Jake. I stepped backward like she had physically hit me. How far along? Maybe 5 weeks. My stomach twisted violently. 5 weeks. There was only one horrifying problem with that timeline. I didn't know if the baby was mine. I barely remember the drive home from my parents' house. Everything after Rachel said she was pregnant turned into noise. Tyler talking about Legos in the back seat. Country music playing softly through the radio. Rachel crying quietly beside me. None of it felt real anymore. The only thing repeating in my head was one question. Whose baby is it? That thought poisoned everything instantly. Every memory from the last 2 months became suspicious. Every late night downstairs. Every grocery run with Jake. Every moment I had trusted the two people closest to me. When we got home, Tyler ran upstairs to shower before school the next morning. The second he disappeared, I turned toward Rachel. When were you planning to tell me? Rachel wrapped her arms around herself tightly. I didn't know how. So your plan was what? Just hope it magically disappeared? That's not fair. I stared at her in disbelief. Fair. My voice cracked for the first time all night. You slept with my brother, and now you're carrying a baby that might not even be mine, Rachel. She burst into tears immediately. I know how awful this is. No, I said quietly. I honestly don't think you do. Jake walked upstairs from the basement at the worst possible moment. The second he saw our faces, he stopped cold. What happened? Rachel looked terrified. I laughed bitterly. Oh, now you care? Jake frowned. What's going on? Rachel couldn't say it. So I did. She's pregnant. The color drained from his face instantly. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Jake slowly looked toward Rachel like he was hoping she'd deny it. She didn't. Oh my God, he whispered. I watched panic spread across his face in real time. Not excitement. Not happiness. Fear. That surprised me more than anything. Finally, Jake asked the question we were all thinking. Do you know if it's mine? The room exploded. I grabbed him by the hoodie before I even realized I moved. You don't get to ask that in my house. Jake shoved me back hard. I have a right to know. You lost your rights when you slept with my wife. Rachel screamed between us. Stop. For a second, I honestly thought we were going to kill each other. Then Tyler's bedroom door creaked upstairs. Silence fell instantly. That's what this affair had become now. Adults destroying themselves while trying not to traumatize a child standing 10 feet away. Jake rubbed both hands over his face. I'll leave tonight. Rachel looked up sharply. Jake. No. He shook his head slowly. This already went too far. I wanted him gone. So why did hearing that still hurt? Because despite everything, he was still my brother. The three of us sat in silence for several seconds before Rachel whispered something almost too quietly to hear. I don't think the baby's yours, Jake. He looked up immediately. Why? Rachel wiped her eyes. Because of the timeline. Hope hit me, so suddenly it actually hurt. Jake looked confused. What timeline? Rachel swallowed hard. The doctor thinks I'm further along than we thought. I stared at her. You already went to the doctor? She nodded weakly. Friday. While I was working overtime. Of course. So what does that mean? I asked carefully. Rachel finally looked directly at me. It probably means the baby is yours. Probably. That word felt dangerous. Jake leaned against the wall, silently processing everything. Then he looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Shame. Real shame. I never wanted this, he admitted quietly. I almost laughed. You keep saying that like it matters. No, he replied. I'm saying it because I don't recognize myself anymore. The house fell quiet again. Then Tyler's small voice came from the staircase. Mom. All three of us turned instantly. My son stood halfway down the stairs holding his blanket. I scared. Confused. He looked between us slowly before asking the question none of us were ready for. Are we still a family? Nobody, answered Tyler right away. How could we? A little boy stood on the staircase, clutching his blue blanket, while the three adults he trusted most in the world looked completely shattered in front of him. Rachel wiped her tears quickly and forced herself toward him. Of course we are, baby. Tyler looked unconvinced. Then why does everybody keep crying? That question hit harder than anything else had. Harder than the affair. Harder than the pregnancy. Because children notice everything adults think they're hiding. Rachel knelt in front of him carefully. Mom and Dad are just having grown-up problems. Tyler looked toward me next. Kids always look to the father for confirmation when they're scared. And for the first time in my life, I didn't know how to protect him. Still, I nodded slowly. Yeah, buddy. We're figuring stuff out. Tyler glanced toward Jake. Is Uncle Jake leaving? Silence again. Jake swallowed hard before answering himself. Yeah, little man. Tyler's face fell immediately. But why? Jake looked completely broken. Because I think your dad needs the house back. It was the safest lie available. Tyler hugged him anyway. That nearly destroyed me. Watching my son cling to the man who helped wreck our family felt like somebody pressing a knife deeper into an already open wound. Jake held him tightly for several seconds before finally standing up. Then he looked directly at me. I'll pack tonight. I didn't answer. I honestly didn't trust myself to speak anymore. That night was unbearable. Rachel slept in our bedroom alone. I stayed on the couch pretending to watch television while Jake quietly packed boxes downstairs. Every sound from the basement echoed through the house like a funeral. At around midnight, Jake came upstairs carrying a duffel bag. He stopped near the front door. Neither of us spoke at first. Then finally he said, You remember when we were kids and Dad made us rebuild that old Mustang together? I frowned slightly, caught off guard. What? The summer after high school. He gave a tired smile. You did all the actual work. I mostly screwed things up. I didn't respond. Jake looked around the house slowly. You spent your whole life cleaning up my messes, Ethan. Anger flashed through me again instantly. You're right about that. He nodded like he deserved it. I do love her. That sentence made my jaw tighten immediately. But not the way you think, he added quickly. Not enough to destroy your life. You already did. Jake looked down at the floor. Yeah. For a moment, he looked less like my younger brother and more like a man who had finally realized he crossed a line he could never uncross. Then he quietly said the one thing I never expected to hear from him. She talked about you constantly. I frowned. What? When you weren't home. Jake's voice sounded exhausted. Even when she was angry at you, it was always you. I didn't know what to do with that information. She still loves you, Ethan. I laughed bitterly. People don't sleep with somebody else when they're in love. Jake looked me dead in the eyes. They do when they're lonely enough. The scary part? I believed him. That didn't excuse anything. But I believed him. Jake grabbed the door handle slowly. Take care of your family. Then he walked outside into the cold October night. And just like that, my brother was gone. The next few weeks felt like living inside emotional quicksand. Rachel tried constantly. Cooking dinner. Asking about my day. Crying almost every night after Tyler fell asleep. But trust had become this invisible broken thing sitting between us at all times. Even normal conversations felt damaged now. One evening, Rachel handed me an envelope from the doctor. My hands actually shook opening it. DNA test results. I stared at the paper silently while my heartbeat pounded in my chest. Then I saw the words. Probability of paternity, 99. 9%. The baby was mine. Rachel burst into tears from relief immediately. But strangely, I didn't feel relief. Not fully. Because the real problem had never been the baby. The real problem was whether I could ever look at my wife again without seeing my brother standing between us. After the DNA test, something changed between Rachel and me. Not healed. Definitely not healed. But the uncertainty was gone. The baby was mine. That should have made everything easier. Instead, it almost made things harder. Because now I couldn't hide behind anger about paternity anymore. I had to face the actual question sitting underneath all of this. Could I forgive her? Some mornings I woke up wanting to try. Other mornings I looked at Rachel and felt physically sick remembering she had been with my brother while carrying my child. The human heart is ugly like that. It can love and resent somebody at the exact same time. About a month later, Rachel had her first ultrasound appointment. She asked if I wanted to come. At first I almost said no. Not because I didn't care about the baby, because I was afraid of feeling emotionally connected again. But Tyler overheard us talking at breakfast. "Can I see the baby picture too?" he asked excitedly. Rachel smiled weakly. "If Dad says yes." Tyler immediately looked at me. That hopeful little boy expression destroyed whatever resistance I had left. So I nodded. "Yeah, buddy. We'll all go." The doctor's office smelled like disinfectant and cheap coffee. Pregnant women sat flipping through magazines while nervous fathers scrolled silently on their phones pretending not to panic. Rachel looked terrified the entire time. Not of the pregnancy. Of me. That realization hit me harder than expected. At some point over the last few months, my wife had stopped being scared of losing the marriage and started being scared I emotionally disappeared already. When the nurse finally called our names, Tyler nearly sprinted down the hallway. "This is so cool," he whispered. Rachel laughed softly for the first time in weeks. A real laugh. Small but real. Inside the dim ultrasound room, the technician spread gel across Rachel's stomach while Tyler watched with wide eyes. Then suddenly, there it was. A tiny heartbeat flickering on the screen. Fast. Strong. Alive. The room went completely silent. Tyler gasped. "Oh my gosh." Rachel instantly started crying. And to my horror, I felt tears burning behind my own eyes too. The technician smiled warmly. Healthy baby. Healthy baby. Such simple words. But after months of betrayal and screaming and broken trust, those two words sounded almost miraculous. Tyler looked at the monitor like he was witnessing magic. "That's my baby brother?" "Maybe," the technician laughed. "Or sister." He grinned proudly anyway. I looked toward Rachel. She was already staring at me. Not romantically. Not hopefully. Just emotionally raw. Like she was silently begging me to remember who we used to be before all this poison entered our lives. On the drive home, Tyler wouldn't stop talking. "I'm going to teach the baby baseball. What if it likes dinosaurs? Can babies eat pizza?" For the first time in months, the truck actually felt like a family vehicle again instead of a crime scene. That night after Tyler went to bed, Rachel found me sitting alone on the back porch. Cold November wind rolled through the neighborhood, while distant football cheers echoed from somebody's television nearby. She sat beside me quietly. "I saw you crying today," she whispered. I smirked faintly. "Mind your business." Rachel actually laughed. A tiny laugh, but genuine. Then silence settled again. Finally she spoke. "I know I don't deserve another chance." I stared out into the darkness. "Probably not." She nodded slowly like she expected that answer. "But," I continued quietly, "I also know people are more complicated than one horrible mistake." Rachel wiped tears from her eyes immediately. "I hate what I did to you." "I know. I hate what I did to Tyler." That one hurt most of all, because children carry scars adults never notice until years later. Rachel looked down at her hands. "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I answered honestly. "I don't know yet." She nodded. No manipulation. No excuses. Just acceptance. Then after several quiet seconds, Rachel whispered something that completely caught me off guard. "I blocked Jake today." I looked at her sharply. "You talked to him recently?" "Only once." She swallowed hard. "He wanted to know if the baby was his." Anger flashed through me instantly again. Rachel saw it immediately. I told him it wasn't. Then I told him never to contact me again. The porch fell silent. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked. Then Rachel leaned her head gently against my shoulder. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I didn't move away. Winter came early that year in Ohio. By December, frost covered the neighborhood every morning, and Christmas lights glowed across rooftops while families pretended life was simple during the holidays. Inside our house, things were still fragile. Better, but fragile. Rachel and I had slowly started talking again like actual partners instead of enemies sharing a mortgage. Some nights we even laughed together. Small moments. Careful moments. Like two people learning how to walk again after surviving a car crash. But pain doesn't disappear just because people decide to stay. Sometimes it waits quietly in corners. Tyler seemed happier after the ultrasound appointment. Kids don't understand betrayal, but they understand tension. He could feel the screaming phase had ended. Still, one night while I tucked him into bed, he asked softly, "Dad, are you and Mom okay now?" The question hit me hard. I sat beside him for a second thinking carefully before answering. "We're trying, buddy." Tyler nodded slowly. Then he whispered something that nearly broke me. "I prayed Uncle Jake wouldn't make you leave." I froze completely. "What?" His small face looked nervous instantly. "I heard Mom crying one night." He stared down at his blanket. "She said she ruined everything." God. Children hear everything. I pulled him close immediately. "Listen to me," I said quietly. "None of this is your fault. Nothing adults did is because of you." Tyler nodded against my chest. "But are we still going to be together?" I looked around his bedroom. Baseball trophies, Lego trucks, family photos that suddenly meant more than they used to. Then I answered honestly, "Yeah, I think we are." That night after Tyler fell asleep, I went downstairs for water and noticed a cardboard box sitting near the front door. Jake's last things. Rachel walked into the hallway behind me. I found them in the basement. Inside the box were old photographs, a watch Dad gave Jake after college, some hoodies, and a framed picture of the three of us fishing when we were kids. I picked it up slowly. Me at 12, Jake around 9. Both of us grinning beside Dad near a lake in Michigan. Back before life got complicated. Rachel watched my face carefully. "You miss him?" It wasn't a question. I stayed quiet for a long time, then finally admitted the truth. "Yeah." Rachel's eyes filled immediately. "I'm sorry." And for once, I believed she truly understood the damage now. Not just to our marriage, to my entire family. A week before Christmas, there was a knock at the door. I opened it expecting a delivery package. Instead, I found Jake standing on the porch in falling snow. He looked thinner, tired, like guilt had physically aged him. Rachel froze when she saw him behind me. Tyler wasn't home, thankfully. My parents had taken him shopping. Jake held up his hand slowly. "I'm not here to start problems." "Then why are you here?" He swallowed hard. "I'm moving to Denver tomorrow." That surprised me enough to stay silent. Jake looked past me briefly into the house before speaking again. "I just didn't want to leave without apologizing properly." Rachel started crying almost instantly. Jake looked at her only briefly before turning back to me. "You were my best friend before you were ever my brother." That sentence hurt more than I expected. "I know saying sorry means nothing now," he continued quietly. "But I am sorry." Snow fell silently around us. Finally, I asked the question buried in my chest for months. "Why'd you really do it?" Jake looked exhausted. "Because for a little while, being close to her made me forget what a failure I felt like after my divorce." Rachel covered her mouth, crying harder. Jake shook his head immediately. "That's not an excuse." "No," I said quietly. "It's not." For a moment, the three of us just stood there in silence, surrounded by the wreckage of what used to be a family. Then Jake reached into his coat pocket and handed me a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" "The deed to Dad's old fishing cabin." I frowned immediately. "What?" He left it to both of us. Jake gave a weak smile. "I signed my half over to you." I stared at him stunned. "You don't have to do that." "Yeah," he said softly. "I do." Then he looked toward Rachel one last time. "I hope you two make it." And just like that, he walked back into the snow and disappeared from our lives for good. 2 years later, our daughter was born healthy. Tyler adored being a big brother. Rachel and I still carried scars from everything that happened. Some nights were harder than others. Some memories never fully stopped hurting. But one thing changed forever after losing almost everything. We stopped taking each other for granted. And sometimes late at night, after the kids were asleep and snow fell softly outside our Ohio home, Rachel would hold my hand quietly like she was still afraid I might disappear someday. Truthfully, part of me probably always would.